pariente de mi tierra.
When I came here in 1971, I found a community that existed, a Dominican community that existed, but it was a very amorphic type of community, a community that was in some situation lethargic, because what we thought at that time was to work very hard, send our money over there because we always wanted to go back home. And that was something that was instilled in me by my parents. But guess what? After high school and after college, I started seeing that the Dominican community do come to this country. And we also want to be part of this great American spectacle, part of this great American dream that we all aspire to be part of.
And once we make up our minds that we're going to become part of that dream, once we understand that is when we're going to progress. In Patterson, we have 25,000 children or students. Out of the 25,000, more than 53% are Latinos. Of the Latinos, 50% are Dominican.
And eventually, in 10 years, you will see the enormous change in the Dominican community because we're a very hard-working community. That's one of the greatest things we have.
Los bodegueros era prácticamente lo que nos representaban en nuestro comercio. Ahora tenemos una cantidad de comerciantes, grandes comerciantes y grandes profesionales que se han destacado en sus diferentes ramas.
Yo soy la propietaria de este negocio, Daisy Rosado, en el cual trabajo fuertemente y me siento muy orgullosa de ser dominicana.
What I have seen from 1971 to the year 2000 is an enormous growth in the Dominican community, where we have grown for the better. We have come from a very passive community to a community that belongs, to a community that wants to be part of this American dream, to a community that's part of the economy, to a community that wants to be part of this great information influx that we have in the world today.
I'm now into technologies and vice president of this company. I'd like to see the Dominican community integrated at all levels of this society, not only in the state, but nationwide. I'd like to see a national organization, which that has already begun, it's in the works, but I'd like to see us with a national organization that represents us, lobbying groups that can advocate for our causes.
It's a shame to see doctors working in a gas station, lawyers doing all the other type of job. It's a shame because we do have the talent. We just have to organize them. In my country, I was working as a lawyer. So when I came to this country, I always think about Dominican women, that we can do it better, that we can try. And even though I have been living almost 7 years in this country, I say if I have my business, I'm going to have the opportunity to do like a multi-service and also show that Dominican woman we love to work and have like to improve ourselves, that we can do it too.
I'm Alma Santana, first Dominican appointed deputy mayor of Jersey City. I hope as the Dominican population grow up, that more Dominicans get in higher position and a better position, just like I am doing today.
And by diving into the political arena, we are telling our people, our young people, that we are no longer here to go back. We love our nation, do not get me wrong. In fact, our nation, the Dominican Republic, depends a great deal on the money that we send to them via many means, because we support our families, because we have businesses, because we buy houses, because of the tourism, and so on and so on and so on. But we also love America. We love this nation and we want to be part of it.
Pues bien, nosotros venimos aquí a este país pensando en un futuro, si regresar a Santo Domingo, regresar con un título universitario, o a su vez poner un negocio y que el gobierno dé garantía. Nosotros no pensamos hacernos millonarios ni hacernos ricos, sino venimos aquí porque es un país que le abre los brazos a los inmigrantes. Y como este es un país de migrantes, el que viene aquí tiene que pensar que este país no es de uno y que uno tiene que hacer la cosa bien para que no se avergüencen de nuestro origen de hispano.
Para que no se avergüencen de nuestro origen hispano. We're going to touch on that in a minute. But this video touches on very interesting points for discussion by our panelists. Eric Vicioso is president of the Advisory Committee for the Dominican Institute at Seton Hall University. Rafael Marte is the founder of EDEPRO, which stands for Education, Development, and Progress, one of the leading Dominican organizations in New Jersey. Damaris Ruiz is the former president of the statewide Dominican Parade of New Jersey, which is based in Patterson. And Dr. Francisco Chapman is a highly acclaimed author, former professor at the University of Massachusetts, and former assistant to the president of Hostos Community College in New York. Welcome all to the program. It's a real pleasure having you here. It's about time we did this program in the Dominican community, so I'm very, very glad that you're here. Your reactions, first of all, to the views that were expressed in the video we just watched. Doctor, let's start with you.
Well, I think the Dominican community have done a very positive work since we cannot only talk about after the Dominican Revolution of 1965, but we can also talk about, you know, the first group of Dominican that came in 1917 and came to the south of Brooklyn, and they used to live there and organize themselves in the lodge and in the different social clubs, so on and so forth. Among those families, most of the people were descendant of the different island, because like putting an example, the Chapman, the Van der Hall, that, you know, I'm mentioning my family because, you know, at that time my uncles and my aunts came with those group in a ship from Samaná and Sanchez, and, you know, they were born in the Dominican Republic. They came
Curious, Professor, that you should mention 1917 as the other influx other than the one that started in 65, because that's when the United States, 65 and 16 and 1916, isn't it? When the two times when the United States invaded Santo Domingo. Exactly. So the influx is as a result of the involvement of the United States?
Yes, yes.
Please give us some of that background.
Yeah, you know, at that time, the United States came into the country, okay, 1916, and they took over the custom in order to make the government to pay some debt that the country has with the United States. It has some historical background on that because the debt was not with the United States at the beginning, but let's leave it at that because the time. And there were a group of people that came, you know, from the different islands to work in the Dominican Republic, and they developed their family. And among those were the Chapman family, and I said the Van Hall, so on and so forth. Then during the 1916, because the situation became very difficult, and everybody spoke about that wonderful country where it was a land of opportunity, then this group of people started migrating from the country, taking a ship, coming to Brooklyn at that time. You know, they used to make $4 or $6 per week, but, you know, they integrate themselves into the country. And, you know, this was a particular migration that not many people talking about. Then the other group that migrated after the 30s, okay, that is another influx of Dominican coming to the United States because as a result of the Trujillo regime taking over. And then most of the people that migrated during that time, there was a very reduced amount of people. They were a political exile. Then during the 30s, people were coming to the United States and also going to Cuba at that time. Then in 1961, after the assassination of Trujillo, then we have an influx also of people coming out of the country, but these were people that were loyal to Trujillo that started coming to the United States because the climax and the type of political situation.
That started in 1961?
61.
Which is when Trujillo was assassinated?
Trujillo was assassinated. Then,
okay, and then after that, a lot of unstable governments for several years, a few years in the Dominican Republic, and a revolution in 1965. Which is really what caused the massive influx from then on to New York and New Jersey of Dominicans.
United States. And so one thing that I just wanted to mention to allow other people to jump in is that, you know, in 1965, we see that after the revolution, then we see the same type of situation happening in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, they have Operation Bootstrap during the 50s. Then in the Dominican Republic, we have an open market for the different multinational corporations to come into the country and a free tariff for them, so on and so forth. Then you have also the opening of the door to coming into the United States. And, you know, it's very important to
There's no doubt that the Dominican immigration and the Dominican government policies, population policies, have always been a direct result of economics and politics. Dominicans weren't allowed to leave the country during the Trujillo period. In fact,
we're not allowed to leave.
We're not allowed to leave the country. It was nearly impossible to do that. When the U.S. occupied the Dominican Republic in 1916 all the way to 1924, they found the need to restructure the economy of the country, introduce sugar cane production, and found that the island, the Dominican Republic, did not have the kind of population and resources to develop that industry. Hence, the policy of bringing Puerto Rican workers to run the sugar mills, sugar cane cutters from Haiti and the Eastern Caribbean. And it remained so until 1965, when right after the revolution, in a way to lessen the political and economic pressures, the United States decided to open the gates, and the Dominican Republic, by the same token, allowing that pressure to relieve the valves, political valves in the Dominican Republic. You have the development of the Dominican community in the United States, which was never known before in such numbers. Dominicans came with the idea of returning, like almost any new immigrant.
But that has changed now?
That has completely changed. Dominicans have matured. They realize that their place is here, that things have been changing in the Dominican Republic, and while it is nice to go back every now and then, this is the place where they're making their money. This is the place where they want to see their kids
and maybe they have a
educate.
summer home back in Santo Domingo.
Or retirement.
Or retirement home. But for you, Damaris, there's no going home. You were born in the United States.
That is correct. I was born and raised here in the United States, and my reaction to the video is how the Dominican dream has completely changed or evolved, if you want to call it that. You start off with people who migrated to the United States looking to make an honest living, but to return back home, to build that home back in the homeland and to bring the family back home. But now you find people trying to infiltrate themselves to the American dream, to live what the American dream, which is, you know, you're going to make a career out of yourself, you're going to raise your family here, you're going to create roots here. You go back to the homeland on vacations to visit people, but home becomes the U.S.
But is there a cultural gap between young Dominicans raised in the United States, perhaps they came born there, but maybe came when very young, or born here, and the older folks who still, you know, think of Santo Domingo as the motherland, and you know, and what kind of problems does that cause?
Well, from my personal experience, of course, there's a cultural gap because I was born and raised here. But I guess I have my parents to thank for that, for serving as perfect role models and infiltrating the Dominican culture in me. And as I grew older, I appreciate it more. I valued it more. I call myself a Dominican American as opposed to just an American. And I guess that the foundation for that is the home. So the gap is, you know, you haven't lived there, so you haven't lived it. You haven't experienced it. I mean, you go there for 2 weeks. You can't compare a lifetime to 2 or 3 weeks a year.
Rafael, tell me about the business community and how the Dominican business community has, number one, rebuilt neighborhoods that were abandoned in this country, in many parts of this country, and also has rebuilt the economy of the Dominican Republic. There's so many Dominicans here sending money back and going back to open businesses there that it's really helping Santo Domingo as well.
Well, there's no question about it. Just with the money that Dominicans send to the Dominican Republic, which is about estimated more than 800 million a year, that keeps the economy rolling. If it wouldn't be because of that, we would have a really chaos in the Dominican Republic. The business here, particularly in New York, where Dominicans started obtaining the bodegas and the supermarket from the other communities, the Cuban communities and the Puerto Ricans, and now, as you can see it, Dominicans practically dominate that particular sector of the business. In New Jersey, we started in the bodegas, but now we own liquor stores, beauty salon, restaurants. So it has been a positive input to the community to see all these businesses developing within the communities and reinvesting in the community.
And it's amazing how fast the Dominican community, especially in New Jersey, has grown. I guess because the Dominican community in New York was so big, and all of a sudden a lot of people started coming over the river, but it has grown very, very fast just in the last 5 years, I would say. I mean, incredibly.
Oh, that increase in population, especially in Patterson, we see the migration from New York into Patterson, Newark, Union City, West New York, and that's a result of that. People own their business in New York, but also they want to live in New Jersey and a better, I would say, a more easy-going life. But they maintain their business in New York.
Yeah, but the mobility of the Dominicans in the United States is not only to New York, New Jersey. I mean, you know, always people in the Dominican Republic, when they ask, where are you going? Or, I'm going to New York. Even that you're going to Chicago or you're going to Massachusetts, they view New York as the United States, and everybody will come to the New York. But, you know, when I lived in
just like a lot of others think of Santo Domingo as all of the Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic, exactly. Then, you know, in Providence, Rhode Island, putting as an example, 37% of the population of the school system, of the public school system, is Hispanic. 65% of that are Dominicans. Then you have the South Providence that used to be a ghost town. Right now is a very prosperous area because the Dominican influx. Dominicans have come there, have developed their businesses, have developed, you know, organizations like NJN Action, and right now they have many positive things going, even to the point that right now people talking about a Dominican to run for mayor of the city of Providence. You go to Massachusetts, the same thing. My last stop was in Chicago, where I was for 4 years.
So the next step is
University.
Political empowerment for the Dominican community?
That's absolutely true. Dominicans came here seeking better opportunities by way of employment. With diminishing opportunities in that area, Dominicans were practically forced to create their own opportunities in their own communities, serving their own communities and expanding from there. That is the progression. Dominicans have acquired economic power, and now the next step of growth is that of political empowerment.
There's a lot of, one of the things that we like to deal with on this program is misconceptions, and to try to clear up those misconceptions about specific groups that come on this program, and we want to do that with the Dominican communities today, and let's deal with some of those myths and misconceptions about Dominicans. One of them being that just because they see a bodeguero working in El Barrio doesn't mean that the bodeguero may not have a college degree, because back in Santo Domingo he may have been a doctor. Talk about that, please.
That's absolutely right. The problem becomes when they come here and they don't manage the language or the culture. The opportunities aren't just there. They're forced to look someplace else, and thus the creativity comes about. They're becoming storekeepers. They're venturing into businesses that they probably never had any idea that they could do. Dominicans are doing well in the area of bodegas, supermarkets, even the foodstuff manufacturing here in the United States. It's likely that if you need to get a haircut, you will wind up in a Dominican hair salon. If you're moving from one place to another by taxi, it will be a Dominican driving the taxi.
Are there other misconceptions, other things that, you know, people, Americans, assume about Dominicans that, you know, drive you crazy? Especially, like, for example, all the attention that Sammy Sosa is getting and Oscar de la Renta gets. Do you feel sometimes like saying, well, there's a lot of other Dominicans doing good things, and why aren't they getting attention? Is that what's happening?
One thing is that Dominicans, one of the misconceptions about Dominicans is that, you know, because some of us do not speak English, okay, that is misconstrued, like, you know, this person don't know anything. And that's where it comes that many of us professionals that come here, learn the language, and start doing different jobs that at that particular time the system do not allow them to do, because they don't have no license to practice as a medical doctor or as an engineer or as a lawyer. But, you know, it's not only to talk about that. The second generation of Dominicans here, right now in the City University of New York, we have 24,000 Dominicans attending the City University of New York. That is to show that we do have a community that is really interested in education, is really interested in progress, and that the parents of these kids are doing a very good job in order to produce positive citizens for this country. Then, you know, that's very important.
Tell me how you guys feel about seeing news reports where Dominicans are dying at sea trying to escape from your country, trying to reach, in many cases, Puerto Rico, which is the closest island, I guess. And do you feel helpless? Do you feel like you need to do Damaris? Do you feel like sad because this is happening? Because there's something more that can be done? And what is that can be done?
I feel sad, and I wish I could do more than what I can do now. And I think the reason why you're encountering all those situations because they're going after a dream that seems impossible for them to attain in the homeland. And they'd rather die trying to achieve the dream than not even pursue it at all. I wish that a lot of us Dominicans, especially here in the U.S., could go back to our homeland and give back from what we've learned and help those individuals attain those dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very sad, but it's not a Dominican problem alone. It's a Haitian problem, it's a Cuban problem, it's a regional problem, and it's not something that can be resolved by Dominicans alone or Puerto Ricans. This is something that requires the involvement of everyone, particularly the United States, because people are moving across the seas, risking their lives and their children's lives, seeking opportunities that probably are in their own country. Mm-hmm. The Dominican Republic right now, for example, has the fastest growth of economic growth in the entire Latin America. The situations are improving there.
Rafael, what can be done? What do you see in the future? I want you guys to tell me, we're running out of time here, but what can the community in the United States, the Dominican community in the United States, do to better the relations between the two countries, to see things get better back in the homeland, to improve the conditions for Dominicans here?
Okay, one of the things that I was discussing with Dr. Chapman when we were coming is we got to get educated in the United States, and we have to reach out to keep every student that is possible, not only Dominicans, but Latinos, to go to college. Get educated, then when you get the education, come back to your community and contribute. Now, the Dominicans that have been educated here can go back and contribute with their knowledge. The business people that have the experience of developing a business in the United States, and if he works in New York, he got to work somewhere else. So let's get back to Dominican Republic with the education, with the tools, and with the financial in your hand to develop new business there with the knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, we can see the experience of other communities, like the Jewish community, the Italians, so on and so forth. And we can learn from that.
With that, we have to leave you. We need to learn from that, and the Dominican community is learning, I think, and it's moving forward. I'm very happy that you were here. We need to remind you to check out what's coming up on this program at www.njlatinos.com. And now we leave you with the contagious merengue music of Millie and Jocelyn, and also the Wilfredo Vargas Band. Watch this.